doing this, and I'm still no good at it. I would have made a better biker than a miker. Before I introduce the program, I do want to recognize our driver at Eddie Pond. Dave is over there, and through his generosity in giving up his evening, he brought us all over, and it wasn't easy. He's working with one bus, and it's a back and forth operation. But he's equal to it. Dave, you want to stand up? Our program tonight is the Sudbury Fife and Drum. And it is going to be fascinating. I really think we don't know too much about it. They're going to give us the history of fife and drum, and they'll portray costumes of the period. And best of all, they're going to give us musical interpretation. And I think if you close your eyes, you can visualize that famous portrait, Spirit of 76, where they returned from the Revolution, battered and bruised, but victorious in their cause. The fife and drum from Sudbury are very popular in this area, and they're very much in demand. We are a privilege to have them tonight. And where are they?
Oh, here we go. I didn't think this was
I don't know if you all can hear me from here. Or should I use the mic? Okay. Okay, we are members of the Sudbury Ancient Fife and Drum Corps and Company, excuse me. And we're here to give you a little reenactment and bring you some living history of Revolutionary time. And we're going to play another number for you. Okay. And I would like to, before we start, I'd like to introduce everyone here. And over here to your left is Jeff Dion, the drummer. Pat Arno, another drummer. Jeff Jeff lives in Holden, Mass. Pat Arno lives in West Boylston. Okay. Al Renzi, he lives in Framingham. Joanne White lives in Grafton. Millbury, excuse me, right on the line, okay? And we have Carmen Calabrese, he lives in Uxbridge. And we have Rudy Ahn, who lives in West Brookfield, and his wife Madeline Ahn over here from West Brookfield. And Roland Dion over here from Worcester, and Florence Dion from Worcester, okay? The Sudbury Corps consists of members from all over, I should say New England, because we have some members that come from New Hampshire, Connecticut, Rhode Island, and Vermont, New York. We also have a drummer who comes all the way from New York. We rehearse every Wednesday night during the summer at the Wayside Inn in Sudbury. And in the wintertime, we rehearse in the school in Sudbury, the Peter Noyes School. So, okay, now let's have another number here. And now to give you a little history on drumming, we're going to have Pat Arno.
She sprang me that I was going to have to do this. Just,
You don't need that?
you can hear me, right? No?
Sometimes doesn't.
No?
For the camera.
Now you can hear me?
No.
Is it on?
That's on.
Right up to the mouth.
Just enough. How about that?
Better,
Okay.
better.
Remind me when I forget. So, what we're playing on is a rope tension drum. Ropes. The ears tension it so that it adjusts the tone of the drum. The crispness that you hear from our playing is these strands across the bottom, and that's catgut. Snares is what they call. The skinhead is very temperamental for weather, and a lot of people do not play on skinheads due to that reason, because we can play parades whether it's raining, shining, or whatever. So we have plastic heads also. Hence, we're a little bit less of reenactors and more of drum corps people. That's definitely a fault of mine. Some of my patriots here are far more reenactors than I am. But the drumming style is based on military tradition in the United States of America. It really came to a forefront in the Civil War. So when you get back to the time of the Revolution, it's very hard to find drumming texts. Benjamin Clark's drum book is one of the very few I can think of. There were some very odd written texts from like 1812 era. So what we've done in order to be able to play the fife tunes that we can find from that drum period, or time period, is look for the patterns that were available in the records and written songs that are very new. Both songs that we've heard tonight were probably written sometime after 1960. Our part, the drum parts. The fife parts are quite a bit older. So the styles that we're trying to emulate were used by the Army to command troops. This was from before the Revolution right up to the Civil War, when brass sections started becoming more popular. They're called field drums for that reason. We're out in the field with the Army. What we would do is typically pick a very simple rhythmic pattern, and that would be a command. I have a couple to show you. Thank you. For example, to call you to breakfast. Breakfast call is a single drag beat, and all that is very repetitive, very simple. You can pick it up from all the way across the can. Okay, as opposed to that, and
Debbie can do that.
it's very close, but different enough so that you can tell. Also, the time of day would tell you when dinner was going to be ready. But the dinner call is a double drag beat, and that's it's a little busier, but the accents and the rhythm of the accents is something that you can pick up fairly easily. So most of the commands were made that way. You had to hear them over gunfire, cannon fire. So everyone would have to go back into camp, learn the commands on the drums. Well, we would have to learn them. And then the men would have to understand them. So all camp life, from when you got up in the morning and we played reveille to when we played a tattoo at night to send you to sleep, were all commands made on the drum. Those rhythmic patterns that I mentioned developed into what are in modern times called rudiments. And we used a standard 26 American rudiments. They were standardized in the 20s. And there wasn't a lot of older things to go on, and drumming was alive and well. So we kind of just evolved into what you guys see today. If we were actually in the Revolutionary War time, I think our drumming would be much simpler, and for us, much boring. So it's about all I can really think of right now. I'll think of something else later. So.
Pat, would you mind show them how you practice your rudiments? You start out
If I have to.
along.
Okay, what I'm going to do is, it's called running a rudiment, or closing and opening a rudiment. When you learn one of these patterns, you do it by being extremely slow and exaggerate all your movements so that your hands have to know what to do. When you start, your brain has to actively tell them what to do, so it has to be huge and slow. When we're playing like those two commands that I was doing before, there's no way your brain can keep up with your hands. So they have to kind of know how to do it on their own. So you start slow, exaggerating, gradually increase your speed as you learn the rudiment. To compete, which is kind of one of the leftover things from Army times, they standardize how you do this. You start very slow, and you increase like you do when you learn, but then you have to also decrease back. And whether your hands match in height, the loudness you play with, all these things are judged according to NARD rules. So this is a long roll. For this. So you start very big and exaggerated. And then gradually increase the speed. You're going to do this next. You're going to do this next.
Next on the list, of course, is you heard the drums. Now we go over here to the fifers. And Carmen over here, Calabrese, 5 years ago, Carmen, he started his own junior drum, fife and drum corps in Lexington, of all towns, where, you know, Lexington, Mass. What happened there? That's shot, right? They practiced. He started the children's drum, fife and drum corps to prolong or keep going the history of Lexington. So Carmen has been at different times Sergeant Fifer, much the same as Pat here in our Fife and Drum Company in Sudbury, has been the sergeant drummer. In other words, they lead and they teach. When there's a sergeant, besides being a sergeant drummer, they have the added responsibility of running the drum corps on the street. Well, right now, along with the sergeant drummer, the fife master, who Carmen has been a couple of times, he's going to show us a few things about fifing.
Hi. This little instrument, which is made of wood, is a very, very old instrument. As Pat mentioned, it basically was used for military. And there's a reason for that, because as loud as the drums are, the fifes are just as loud. In fact, there's a little story about back many years ago out west. There was a group of people crossing on a wagon train, and they had an Indian scout. And as they were traveling through the fields, there was drumming sounding from the Indians, and the people got very upset, and they called the Indian scout over and they said, "Should we be worried about this? We hear Indian drums." And the Indian scout said, "No, don't worry about anything." And a little while later, the drums got louder and louder, and they said, "Should we worry about this?" They said, "Don't worry when the drums play." And then a little while later, the drums stopped, and the Indian scout said, "Now you get worried." And they said, "Why?" "Because when drums stop, fife solo begins." The fife is called a cross-hole flute. And the reason for that is you blow across the mouthpiece rather than into it. It has 6 holes, usually made of a very dense wood. The denser the wood, the better the fife plays. This one here is made of coco bolo. They make them of rosewood. They make them of African ivory wood, but it has to be a very dense wood so that it plays well. Fifing, there has been fifes around for centuries and centuries and centuries. The Egyptians played something similar to this. In China, they had an instrument that is very similar to this. But this particular instrument came to the forefront during the 12th and 13th century when the Swiss used this instrument for military purposes. And the Swiss at that time had these great armies. In fact, it was felt that the Swiss army was the best army in the world, and there was a reason for that, because they used a fife and drums to give commands. Well, the knives too. They use pipes and drums to give commands. And many of the city-states throughout Italy and other parts of Europe would hire Swiss armories to fight for them because they were so good. And the fife itself plays in B flat. It's very shrill. It's a field instrument, really not meant to be played inside, but we do it anyway. And as time went on, fifes became had changed to some extent. And I have a group of them over here if you want to look at them afterwards. This particular one is very similar to what would have been played in the 18th century, in the middle 1700s, and at the time of the Revolutionary War. Probably then they may have had a little different type of furrows on them, but it would have been very much like this. Now they make two-piece fifes. They make fifes that are easier to tune. They have a slide in the middle to tune them. They make them of different types of woods. Yeah, this one here happens to be a two-piece. The head joint on this is ivory wood. And this, again, is a 6-hole. They make them with 10 holes and 11 holes. Now, 11-hole fife has a hole. I don't think I brought an 11-hole, but this is a 10-hole fife. If you notice, there's a hole for each of your thumbs and a hole for your little fingers, which makes it easier to play the sharps and flats. But in actuality, what you play on that, you can get the same music out of this. That just makes it slightly easier. So the fifes have sort of changed as time went on to make it more melodic, a little different, easier to play. People have come up with all types of different arrangements for making fifes. Still, the fife is made of wood. It still has, and these furrows on the end, by the way, are no more than just to protect it in case you drop it or bang it and the ends don't split. That's the only reason why they put a furrow on the end of the fife. Any questions?
No demonstration.
Thank you very much. How about another number here?
What?
Okay, want to pick another
You
number?
want to hit high C? We'll play another tune. What? Welcome here.
Listen.
Okay, next we're going to hear from Madeline, and she's going to talk about the clothing that we wore in this period, that some of us are wearing here. Maybe if you could...
Get out of the way.
Good evening. This dress that I have on is called a day dress, and I'm wearing what is called this short shawl. This would be worn during the day when it was really chilly, and not particularly when it was really cold. If I were out shopping, and this is the clothing that I would wear shopping, this would be my grocery bag. And this dress, called the day dress, is worn like this. Under it I have a chemise, which is this piece right here, this white. And this chemise is worn day and night. This is something that I would wear to bed in the evening, and then I get up in the morning and I have it on and I get dressed right over it. Bathing was only done twice in a woman's lifetime, and that was when she was born and when she died. Water had to be carried from the stream, or if they were lucky enough to have a well, it had to be carried into the house and put in a basin. And the order of just washing would be the man of the house first, the eldest son or sons next, then the next oldest daughter, the baby, and then the wife would wash up in what was left. And since the baby was washed nearly last, that's where we get the expression, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Now, Florence's outfit, and she'll tell you about her outfit, is what is called a work dress. And she has an apron on, she has a petty slip on, the orange piece, and her upper clothing. She also has a cap on, which I have on too. The bonnet was worn only to go up. But women wore caps because they couldn't wash their hair every day. As a matter of fact, they couldn't wash their hair even once a month. So they always wore a cap and kept the hair clean. Now, the pièce de résistance, I have tied my head to this bonnet. The pièce de résistance for the women who were well-to-do during the Revolutionary time was to be able to go to a ball. And this is the beginning, and this is for you men too, so that you can understand how much it took for a woman to please a man then. This is the beginning or the underclothing of what women wore to go to a ball. This underpiece is called, again, the chemise. This is called the stay, and these are called paniers. Now what they did was they lifted the women's clothing out at the hips, because the bigger a woman's hips, the more appealing she was, because it meant that she could have many children. Now in these paniers, because we didn't have pockets, are slits, so that a woman could put her hand right into the panier and she could store whatever she needed. Now each petty slip has a slit in it, and I'll show you as I dress her how she was able to get into this. Now this would be a regular pocket. Florence could have one of these on, or I would wear one of these under a dress. I wouldn't wear the panier for shopping or working. And this is what a pocket looked like. And it was just simply tied, and the slit that I showed you would be lined up with this slit. And this is how women carried their money or anything else they needed during the time that they were out of the house. When they were in the house, this would be worn right over the petty slip, which is this. Now you'll notice before I get into the ball gown, I have these instruments hanging from my belt. And this is called the chatelaine. It's a French term. And a working woman would have this on her belt. And the things on the chatelaine would be relative to what she did. Now, as a reenactor, I portray Betsy Ross. And so I am a seamstress, and my chatelaine contains a thimble holder, a pin cushion, a scissors, and a needle case. This little blue thing had some kind of smelling salt in it so that if I felt faint, I could revive myself. Now back to the gown. This was the underclothing. The next item that would be put on would be the petty slip. And this is all hand worked, and it would be normally quilted, because the more hand work that they put into a petty slip, it showed their status. And going to a ball was definitely a very high status symbol in the Revolutionary time, because only people that had money could afford dancing lessons, and anybody that was anybody danced. So this was the first thing that went on, called the petty slip. And as you see, the slits, right in the slip, line up with the slit in the panier so that she could use that to put her fan, her gloves, and that little heart in case she felt faint while she was dancing. This item of clothing is called a fichu or a modesty cloth, and this went next. My friend Gracie wiggles a lot, so. The next thing put on is the ball gown. Women that could afford a gown like this didn't dress alone. They had help. And that would be what, this is what you would see a woman wearing to a ball. Now, anything made of silk or any fabric that was imported was very expensive at the time, and so only the wealthy had anything like this to wear to a ball. And of course, the hat. She has lost her head over her gown. Now in the back, this is called polonazing, and it brings the gown up so that the petty slip can be seen. And it was simply just 2 pieces of ribbon that were put at different areas in the dress so that if she did not want to polonaise it, she could just leave it down. Now, she wouldn't wear a short cape to a gown. This is the short one, and it's called a manteau. This is not something she would wear to the gown. She would instead, because they were mostly wintertime affairs, would wear the cape. And by this time, she'd have a hernia because all this clothes weighs a ton. And that's what the fashionable woman, including gloves, would wear to a ball.
What's the fabric of the cape?
The cape is wool.
Wool. Most of their material, their clothing, was either made of like a linen or a wool. Cotton was not even heard of in those days, okay? And now I want to introduce Rudy, and he's going to show us what he's been carrying over here. Rudy? Rudy, what country are you from originally?
They were talking about Switzerland, and that's where I'm from. So, but I didn't play the fife in the 12th or 13th century. But the Swiss, somebody said about the knife, the Swiss Army knife. Obviously, when I was in the military, everybody had a Swiss Army knife. That was standard part of your equipment. If you didn't have that with you, you were in deep trouble. Anyway, can you hear me? It's easier for me to come with after. This is a musket, a flintlock musket. Some of you may have heard of it. Well, this is obviously a reproduction, but flintlock muskets were used for many, many centuries. And then during the Revolutionary War, all the muskets were flintlock at the time. They didn't have percussion then yet. This is a French model. There were two models were popular then. There were many, many different models, but two were popular. It was the Brown Bess, which was the English model, and the British had, everybody had Brown Besses, obviously, or just about everybody. And the American soldier, or in the Revolutionary War, they had many different muskets, different names, and so. But later in the war, George Washington was able to buy, I forgot exactly, like about 100,000 muskets from the French. And this is called the Charleville. That's what they bought at the time. It's the 1763 model. There were different models. But just to quickly show you, the reason it's called Charleville is because it came from a town in France called Charleville. It works the same way as a Brown Bess. It's just a little bit of different style and looks a little different. Some of you may have heard how a musket works. I can just quickly show you. It obviously has a flint in it, and what you do is, you take the cartridge out with the black powder in it, and you rip off the top, and you prime the pan. This is called the pan here, where you put a little bit of powder in it, and you shut the pan, and you put the rest, you pour it into the top. In the war, obviously they had then they also put a lead ball in it, and they would have to use the ramrod to ram it all down to make sure it's solid, and it's all pushed together, pressed together. And then when they were ready to fire, they bring the musket up like this, and they cock this all the way back like this. And then when the commanding officer said, make ready, to get the musket ready, like this. And then he says, aim, and you pull like this, and you pull the trigger. And when you pull the trigger, this snaps forward and hits this steel piece, and it creates a little spark. And this flies open, and the spark ignites the powder here. And there's a little hole here, where then it goes through the hole, and that's how the musket works. And it fires. And so it's when you do a lot of firing, you have to constantly clean this to make sure it doesn't clog up. But especially in humid weather, it's worse than in dry weather. So this is the steel piece is obviously a heat-treated piece of steel, so that you can create the spark. And the barrel is absolutely smooth. There's no rifling in the barrel, so the muskets were not very accurate. If you would shoot at somebody at 100 yards, you're really pure luck to hit them. Anything further than 50 yards, you were taking your chances. So during the Revolution, there was a lot of shooting, a lot of firing, and a lot of missed shots. So because it's not accurate at all. It's like I said, especially at distance. You know, that's why. Who was the gentleman who said, "Hold your fire till you see the white of their eyes"? At Bunker Hill, I think it was. I can't remember. And that's why he said that, because you have to wait till the last moment to be able to hit the enemy. They're pretty heavy. They weigh about 12 pounds, the same as the brown vest also. Any questions?
Comment. That isn't so awfully different from the 1861 Springfield.
It's
A lot carried over, just the same.
Yeah, but was that a percussion model or was that a flintlock? I'm not sure.
Percussion.
Because in the Civil War, I was told there were no flintlocks anymore. It was all percussion.
Oh.
But I once asked somebody that was the Civil War reenactment, said no more flintlock. That was out by percussion.
And actually, the Springfield had a rifle barrel.
Yes,
But very slow turn.
slightly rifled.
Okay, so it was probably a little bit more accurate too.
And it sent a conical projector instead of a round ball.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
How long would it take in between shots? I mean, how often could you shoot at somebody, you know?
That's a good question.
About 10
If
minutes.
if you practice a lot, you can fire about 3 times a minute,
Really?
provided that you don't
Wow.
run into any problems. They said that there were a few exceptions who could actually fire 4 times a minute, but I know I personally can't do it. I mean, I have enough trouble to fire 3 times in a minute. So it takes a lot of practice.
Yeah, I think once a week.
Thank you very much. One thing we haven't talked about are the men's clothing. And Joanne, do you want to give us a little background on the men's clothing? Huh? You're not too good with men, can you do men's clothing? Okay, all right,
Can I have a model?
sure. We'll take different styles.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, take different styles.
This would be a typical, rather dressed outfit. This isn't something that a man would wear every day working. This is called, not a top coat, but a frock coat.
You and me both.
Underneath is a sleeveless vest called also a sleeveless frock, and the breeches. She has the long stockings, and do you have garters on? No garters, smooth garters. The gentlemen with the nice legs have garters. Most men carry, Joanne has a fife case here, and so she would carry her fifes in her case, but Carmen has a haversack, and women, which I thought I brought but I didn't, women also have haversacks. They're a little bit wider and they're made of fabric. Oh, there's one. Yep.
Women thought you invented handbags, huh? The guys had them a lot before you did. She's done, I got other things to pick on.
And of course the hat. Jeff is wearing a farmer's hat. Someone had a work hat.
Every day, yeah.
Yeah, Carmen, did you have a work hat?
Yeah,
here?
here's some.
And this is something that you would wear working, chopping wood, whatever.
And if you women thought silk socks, you see us guys wearing, that's what we got to wear. There's our stocking. It goes up and up and up. You know, that's over the knees. See, and besides, when you got married, and you know, when you get married today and you throw the garter away, the women didn't invent them, the guys did, see? They got it, to hold the stocks up, so they wouldn't all ruffle gums. And when you couldn't wear your shirt anymore, these shirts, in the daytime, it come a little ragged, so what did you do at night? Your night shirt. Covers just about everything. When we're done wearing it for daytime use, you wear it at home at night, going to bed. That is a hunter's frock. When you want to go hunting for rabbits out in the woods or something, with your musket, you make sure the rabbit was real close, otherwise you didn't have rabbit for dinner. This is one type of hunting frock. All right? You wear it most of the time going outside. And this is a blanket coat for the guys. If you were going out to the field, it's wool, probably made out of an old blanket or a new blanket. And you just threw it over yourself. There's no zippers, no buttons, no nothing. Just throw it over. One button at the neck. That's a long sleeved waistcoat. Right here. No, this is actually an outer coat. Pat has a long sleeve waistcoat. Jeff and I, we have short sleeve waistcoats. And of course, these are called what, guys? Breeches, not breeches. Breeches, 2 E's. All right? I can't wear authentic shoes. I gotta wear it because my feet are older than these guys. Some of these guys. But Carmen has authentic replica shoes. Pat has them. Jeff has them. Everybody else is younger. They all got authentic.
The interesting thing about these is they weren't lasting. There's no left or right. They're exactly the same. So no matter how you stand, it always looks like the feet coming to the one direction. They're exactly the same. They're exactly the same.
This is actually a musician's jacket. This particular one was made for to match the Lexington Minutemen's uniform their dress uniform that they wear. So it's actually, the musician had the opposite colors. If you looked at the militiamen, they would have the buff on here and the blue where the buff is. So what they did was the musician wore the opposite colors, and the stripes, you notice the stripes on the arms were for the lines in the music staff, and the hearts in the back were always on a musician's jacket. So this is what a musician would wear. This is also a military type tricorn, rather than the more dress tricorn, which this is.
I feel like Vanna.
This particular jacket is a naval waistcoat. Revolutionary Navy would wear something similar to this, with a long pants to someone in 1775 came down to just above the ankles, and they either a Navy person would wear that, or a workman when he was working would wear, rather than breeches, he would wear the longer trousers.
And this is an idea of what the military outfits, the coat, with the short sleeve waistcoat underneath, plus the shirt, plus the breeches, all the way down, and a real military cotton pad would have this backside would really be sticking up. They were proud men being in the military, so that backside of the tricon would really be sticking up. And this is decorations. You've heard of it before, talking about revolutionary time. That's the cockade right there on the hat. That's worn by dress, not only the military, but the men really dollied up by putting a cockade on their hat. And this is another real, that Rudy has. Real dress hat when you're going out on the town, you know, going to the ball, you're taking your lady that went all through that trouble. He sticks on the hat. Oh, and then the farmer in the field is the old net. Your wife spent hours walking at home and, you know, getting you wool and weaving it. So this is what you wore out in the field in one of the hats you wore out in the field in the wintertime. Or maybe in the blacksmith shop. We're dressed more or less like it every day, where in Carmen and Rudy, they're richer than us. They got a lot of money to spend on clothes. They can own 2 outfits. We can only just about own one. And we're wearing day in and day out. And I guess that's about it for clothes.
Now, I'd like you to show the back of the breeches.
Oh.
My daughter-in-law and
Back
my...
of the front.
My
You guys were in the
daughter-in-law
Navy?
calls-
Any of you guys were in the Navy?
Yeah,
This remind you of something?
yeah.
Yep.
Huh? Only a few less buttons. But it was, the breeches are only 3. That's called 12 front breeches, but they just fall down when you had to go. Now, the backside.
My daughter-in-law. Diaper butt.
They didn't fit. They made all sizes, you know, no matter what size you were in the back side, they all fit because, wow, lots of room. They gathered all the material. My daughter named it right. Diaper butt.
Also for growth, you notice the string there, so when you got a little wider, you just loosen it a bit, and then when you got a little skinnier, you just tightened it up a bit, so. Those were very, very
The
practical.
haversack for the average male was you carried everything in it, your wallet and whatnot. We have pockets here, but very few of them have really pockets in those days. They carried everything in here, like your, you know, you get your socks and your rags and eyeglass cases and whatever you needed. That you had in your haversack instead of carrying a purse. The ladies didn't come up with everything first. The guys came up with it a long time ago.
Okay.
Now
Thank you.
quickly, 5 minutes. Being a historical society, George knows more than I do about these things. He has more flags than I can shake a stick at. He's got them all with his scout crew. I know, I went down to one meeting. This is from 1775. It's a replica, of course. You know what it is? What it's called? The Grand Union. The Grand Union flag. Also known as the Cambridge flag. Because this one was authorized by General Washington in Cambridge, Massachusetts, at Cambridge, when he pushed the British off of Pleasant Hill in Boston, otherwise known as Evacuation Day. That's how it all started. Well, back in 1775, George Washington authorized this flag, and today it is still an authorized flag. You servicemen, you know, you salute the American flag. This is one of them. Another one is the Betsy Ross. They're gonna hold up a modern day flag. But what I think, it comes close to what it would look like back in 1775, would be these colors. Those are all nice bleached and what we can do today, what our factories can produce. But I think this is one, would be more the authentic unbleached white that you get somebody making their American flag. Of course, this is called the what?
Betsy Ross.
Betsy Ross. Here's Betsy Ross. She does a good impersonation of Betsy Ross on her own. And you've done it down in Sturbridge and all around the Brookfields at the Sturbridge, in Sudbury. You've done it there, Sudbury too, so she does it all over Massachusetts. So that's the Betsy Ross. And here's the Bennington from and you can tell the colors have bleached out a little bit. This is taken from the Battle of Bennington, Vermont, 1777. The one with the 76. This one is not really an authorized version of the flag. The Betsy Ross, the Grand Union, or the Cambridge flag, you see it marching down the street, supposed to respect it as much as the 50-star flag today. That has never been, those two have never been decommissioned by the Congress of the United States, and they were both authorized by the Congress, well, back then was the Continental Congress of the American colonies. Authorized those flags, and the authorization has never been taken away from them. That's one other flag, a version of the Navy flag in 1775. The one I like, and most of the time I carry it in the parade. We don't have fancy flagpoles with the Sudbury group. From the Navy, you guys that were in the Navy, what is that? That's the original, one of the original, Don't Tread on Me flag. In 1775, the Continental Navy used it, only they had the red and white stripes with the snake and the Don't Tread on Me printed on their flag. And as far as I know, right now we're out of time. Quarter of.
Thank you. Now let's hear another couple of numbers. Okay, so we can end our program.
Brandy?
One time for
One's through Brandy, one.
you can front and center. I think they can hear us from wherever we stand.